There's one way to get Bitcoins that we didn't mention. That's because I hesitate to mention it because it's not a good way for somebody who's new to get into Bitcoins. It requires a huge upfront investment, a bigger upfront investment than most people are probably willing to make if they're new. And that is by mining. So as we mentioned before, when people do the proof of work to process Bitcoin transactions to create the Bitcoin network, they are engaging in mining, and they're using their computing power to contribute to the Strength Bitcoin network. And as such, somebody who is participating in that activity gets a so-called block reward, which is some amount of Bitcoins. It's 25 Bitcoins per block right now. And a block is just a amount of transactions bundled together. That it's called the blockchain and so forth. Anyway, so the block reward is like winning the lottery or winning the bingo, and it provides an incentive to mine. Nowadays, it's getting so difficult to mine. You used to be able to do it with your computer, like you mentioned, Adam, just a regular old computer or maybe a graphics card that was made for gaming. Now you really need specialized equipment to mine, and these are machines that are built specifically for Bitcoin mining and no other purpose. And furthermore, they're getting rapidly obsoleted as the technology continues to improve at a rapid pace. In a couple of months, these machines are obsolete because they can't keep with the now increased difficulty as time goes on the Bitcoin network. But the point is, if you invest in specialized mining equipment, and if your mining equipment is able to keep up with the difficulty of the Bitcoin network, you can make Bitcoins by mining. However, is it profitable? It's not really designed to be profitable. It's designed to create an incentive to participate in mining, but not so much of an incentive that it's wildly profitable. It's kind of one of those things that if it's being done right and the Bitcoin network adjusts automatically, so it's usually being done right, it is not wildly profitable. It's barely profitable. And it may take a while to break even on the investment that somebody makes in the hardware that's required to mine. So mining is a way to acquire Bitcoins, yes, but it is not a way that I would recommend for people who are new to Bitcoins.
Yeah, it's not a simple way, and it's a function of Bitcoin's popularity. I mean, really, that's what it is that if Bitcoin wasn't seeing so many people wanting to mine, then it wouldn't be hard to mine. But because everybody, I mean, like the first thing that people talk about when they get in, they're like, oh, you can create these with your computer and they're worth how much? What you don't pay for in money, you pay for in time, basically. So the people who are really seeing the crazy profits from the arbitrage from mining are people who mined fairly early. And, you know, that, right. I mean, fairly early is relative. Fairly early is like a year ago or like 6 months ago in some cases.
Or 2009.
I mean, 2009, cases, certainly. That is very early comparably. You know, you said that mining is designed to be barely profitable, and I agree with you in the short term. But I think that, again, this gets back to that fact that Bitcoin is deflationary, which means that over time the price will probably go up because there's more demand than there is supply. So if you look at it from that perspective, if you don't have to sell the coins that you mine immediately to pay for electricity, and you can sit on them for 6 months, then probably they'll be worth a lot more in 6 months than they were now. So maybe it is highly profitable, just not immediately profitable. But to your point about people mining or not, yeah, it's totally a highly specialized field. You absolutely should not get into it. If you do, you should talk to a consultant. Are there mining consultants yet? There should be mining consultants.
Yeah, I believe there are mining consultants, I'm sure. And, you know, one other thing I wanted to mention about mining, there have been a lot of stories, and I think this will continue to be true in the future, even more so, but there have been a lot of stories of people who pre-order mining equipment and they pay with Bitcoins, and then the company doesn't ship the product for a while. Meanwhile, the price of Bitcoins goes up. So not only have they basically overpaid for their mining equipment, but they also missed an opportunity cost, because if they would have just taken that cash and put it into buying some Bitcoins at the time when they bought the mining equipment, and then waited until the time when the mining equipment actually ships, then they would have had a lot more money than if they had just bought the mining equipment and waited and then tried to figure out how to break even on it. So in many cases, it can be more profitable if you're thinking about making an investment in mining equipment. Take that cash and put it into Bitcoin and see how that does.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. So I actually have an experience surrounding this directly. Back in July of 2012, I pre-ordered a jalapeno from a company called Butterfly Labs. Now, a jalapeno, it was supposed to be a little coffee cup warmer that was powered by USB and that would mine Bitcoin and also warm your cup of coffee. that would sit on top of it. And so at the time, Bitcoins were worth about $4. I pre-ordered one of these very small units for, I think it was something like 25 Bitcoin. They were supposed to ship in, I believe it was October, and that date slipped. And in November, I asked for my money back, and they told me they wouldn't give me my money back. By the time we got to November, the price of Bitcoin was up to about, I think it was $14 or $15. So the value of the money that I had spent in Bitcoin had tripled. And so what had been like a $250 purchase was in fact now somewhere more in the range of, like a $600 purchase. And so I was unhappy about that. And I tried to get my money back from them. They wouldn't give me my money back. And so I waited another 2 months and the price of Bitcoin was up another, 50% or something like that. And so I finally got them to give me my money back, but they would only give me back 11 Bitcoins. So I paid them something like 25 and I got back 11. And I wasn't going to get the product from them. So I took a loss of 15 Bitcoin. But then by getting that refund,
at least you got the 11 back, but
I know.
still,
and this is the point, painful. Is that in hindsight, it was painful at the time, but I was like, I'm glad to be over with it. It was stressing me out. I was like, man, I can't believe I did this because my Bitcoins are tied up. Right. I'm never going to get them back. So I get my money back. And at this point, they're still saying, oh, well, we'll release in 4 weeks or 2 weeks. And they just kept getting pushed out. And so I got my money back and I watched over the next 6 months as the price went up to over $200. And I was like, wow, if I had kept my money in there, this would have been it was like a $20,000. I mean, it was crazy. The amount of money that would be spent on this particular unit just because I didn't understand the future value of the money that I was spending at the time that I spent it. It absolutely floored me. So if there's one thing you can learn from my experience, and I was very happy that I had gotten the refund because I wound up earning exponentially more than the Bitcoins were worth at the time that I sold them. So it actually wound up being a positive transaction for me. But a lot of people didn't have that same sort of luck in getting a refund. And so a lot of people were stuck through that. And that's a terrible thing. So when you're dealing with Bitcoin or any sort of deflationary currency, because I think these are going to be getting more common in the years to come, really make sure that you don't treat them like normal money. Because when you treat them like normal money, then you want to spend it. And with these things, you want to spend them when you can get a really good deal that captures future value. Like if someone's going to give you 30% off for something in Bitcoin relative to something else, then that's probably a deal that I would take. But if someone's going to give me 5% off for Bitcoin, then probably not. I'd rather spend dollars if I have them available to spend.
I think you're absolutely right about that. You really got to incentivize someone to part their precious Bitcoins.
Yeah, I mean, it's just different, and you don't feel good when you make a bad decision like that. If you're buying a product and you get it, then that's something like you paid for it, you got it, and so there's an immediacy that makes the price okay. But if you're talking about pre-orders, especially, I will never pre-order anything again in Bitcoin. Any pre-order I make is now in
right.
dollars, especially for things like mining equipment. But yeah, I mean, again, like with Bitcoin, the key is, will the value of the Bitcoin be better than what potentially spending the Bitcoin now could give you? Because if that answer goes in favor of Bitcoin, then you probably shouldn't spend it.
That's a great thing to talk about because there's so much buyer beware in the world of coin that people might not be prepared for if they're just completely new to it and unfamiliar. A lot of people compare it to a Wild West or something like that. And I wouldn't say it's a Wild West, but you do have to watch out for yourself, and you do have to take these things into account, the potentially deflationary nature of Bitcoin, the irreversible nature of transactions, and also security and kind of protecting your Bitcoins and protecting your passwords and so forth. More than 300,000 users and counting trust blockchain.info. It's a Bitcoin wallet service and a wealth of Bitcoin information, and it's completely free to use. With a blockchain.info wallet, you'll get the convenience of a web wallet and the security of a desktop client. Blockchain.info is also a block explorer. You can use it to see Bitcoin transactions in real time, check the balance of any Bitcoin address, and view many handy Bitcoin charts all for free. See what they have to offer today at blockchain.info.